Hello, my name is Reverend Aliza Bloom Robinson, and I am thrilled and delighted to be with you today. I'm going to start with a story. It's called Two Castle Builders. Hot sun, salty air, rhythmic waves. A little boy is on his knees, scooping and packing the sand with plastic shovels into a bright blue bucket. Then he upends the bucket on the surface and lifts it, and to the delight of the little architect, a castle tower is created. All afternoon he'll work, spooning out the moat, packing the walls. Bottle tops will be sentries, popsicle sticks will be bridges. A sandcastle will be built. Big city, busy streets, rumbling traffic. A man in his office. At his desk, he shuffles papers into stacks and delegates assignments. He cradles the phone on his shoulder and punches the keyboard with his fingers. Numbers are juggled and contracts are signed, and much to the delight of the man, a profit is made. All his life he will work formulating the plans, forecasting the future. Annuities will be centuries, capital gains will be bridges, and an empire will be built. Two builders of two castles. They have much in common. They shape granules into grandeurs. They see nothing and make something. They are diligent and determined. And for both, the tide will rise and the end will come. Yes, that is where the similarities cease. For the boy sees the end, while the man ignores it. Watch the boy as the dusk approaches. As the waves near, the wise child jumps to his feet and he begins to clap. There is no sorrow, there is no fear, there is no regret. He knew this would happen. He's not surprised. And when the great breaker crashes into the castle and his masterpiece is sucked into the sea, he smiles. He smiles, he picks up his tools, he takes his daddy's hand, and he goes home. Day well done. The grown-up, however, is not so wise. As the waves of years collapse on his castle, he is terrified. He hovers over the sandy monument to protect it. He blocks the waves from the walls he has made. Saltwater soaked and shivering, he snarls at the incoming tide. This is my castle, he defies. The ocean does not respond. Both know to whom the sand belongs. I don't know if we remember that much about sandcastles, but we know the children do. Watch the children and learn. In this world that we stand in right here today, it looks like the tide's coming in. It feels like the tide's coming in. With everything that we faced this year, starting back in December with the wildfires in Australia threatening to burn up the whole country, and then in early this year, we had the coronavirus, the pandemic, the quarantines, the masks, the fights. I don't know about, in Canada so much, but in America, we fight, or United States, I should say. We're fighting over everything. And then we had a whole thing about the racism and police brutality and the arguments about this and that and the other thing. And the weather, more fires right this moment. California's burning, Colorado's burning, New Mexico's burning. Our southern states are facing hurricanes and storms, and it feels like everything is about to crumble. And maybe it is. Very first off, I want to say, if you are in the line of fire, so to speak, right? If you are on the front lines, if you are in a place in your life where you are hugely impacted by anything, and anything at all, number one, take care of yourself. Number one, make sure that you are safe, that all is well right where you are. So I want to really say that first. And if you're in that place, then just sit back and relax, and I'm going to talk to the rest of us. The rest of us are somewhat impacted. We're all impacted. Just the coronavirus, it's impacting finances and economics and healthcare systems and all kinds of things. We're all impacted. But I think that's the point I want to make. We are not alone. Not a single one of us stands alone. We are humanity. And as a collective, we are humanity. Now in Unity, we teach and we've taught forever, we've always said that there is but one presence and one power active in the universe. We call it God, we call it good. And when is it good? All the time. Our second basic principle is that we are part of that. We are not separate from it. Contrary to life experience, right? That we all have that Christ presence within us, that we are divine by nature. And so given that, the first two principles that we have, how do we stand in what I believe is going on? So what I believe is going on is that our systems may be crumbling. We may be in a tide washing over that is going to take the sandcastles that we have built. And some people are terrified by that, like the man in the story. But what if we become like the child and know that that's happening? And what if what is happening is exactly the breakdown that will allow us to move through a breakthrough? The first step in creation is chaos. Would you agree with me that we are in some chaos collectively, worldwide, globally? We're in chaos. We've got a lot of things moving. And a lot of things moving, it feels like at warp speed. And the climate and, anyway, we went over that. You know what that is. But what if that's exactly the thing that will catapult us into what I call new humanity now? So let's back up a bit. New humanity now, I believe, is where we are moving. It is a new state of consciousness. It is a new perspective. It's almost a new species being born. So for the past thousands of years, humanity has lived with a foundation of separation. Mayans call it the Maya or the illusions, right? We live in the dream of separation. We are birthed onto this planet and we believe we are separate. Separate from ourselves, separate from our family, separate from the earth, separate from one another. And in that mass collective consciousness of separation, we see what we see. We see disease, we see lack, we see limitation, we see fighting, we see hierarchies, we see us versus them, we see black versus white. Everything is about the other, right? I'm me and you're the other. We are me and they are the other. In conscious evolution, which is a science that's been around for decades, Barbara Marx Hubbard was a big part of that, and she talked about Birth 2012, and she talked about the birth of a new humanity. If you've studied spirodynamics, we are in the birth into the second tier. There's lots of frameworks for what's happening. But in this birth of a new, the old has to either transform, transcend, evolve, or die. That's true of evolution for all time. We look at species over time. You can study that conscious evolution and evolution of consciousness, and you see that again and again and again scientifically. And what's coming is what Jesus taught. Right? What's coming is the birth of knowing our oneness. So when we shift from believing in separation, whether we believe it or not, we're living in the foundation of separation, and we make that quantum leap into new humanity, we land in our oneness. So we're not thinking about oneness anymore. We become oneness. We don't look at someday, some lifetime way out here, I might realize my Christ presence. We become it. And once we become that, our whole experience on the planet becomes different. Because instead of separation that believes in other, the foundation, the very cells of our being, we know oneness. And when we know oneness, we know wholeness. And when we know oneness, we no longer have the capacity to be in separation, to be in lack, to be in limitation, to be at war, to be adverse, to be right, wrong, them, us, and other disappears in oneness. And as we become one, as we pop into this new dimension of consciousness, as we access it, it's like the pure presence of being. We become that. We don't strive for it, right? So feel the difference. In the old, we're striving. But when we make that leap, that pop, then we become. And in that becoming, we are. And then what we discover, what I've discovered in my work, in my own personal process and in my work and in my ministry and with my clients and with my students, is then that oneness then becomes the foundation. But it's not the end, it's the beginning. And then what we're moving towards is this sense of allness. Can you feel the difference? Like we're separated, we're separated. I'm all alone and you're different than me and you don't understand and all the story. So we quantum leap, or we pivot from separation. We have the experience, oh, there's oneness. Oh, there is no separation between you and me. I am one with all that is, which includes every living thing and planet Earth herself and the universe. And then from oneness, we can pivot or leap or jump or pop into this sense of allness. I am the allness. And that is such a new place. That is the place that the more often we touch it, the quicker that we build neural pathways to this new vibrational frequency, the more likely that we'll be able to hold it, not grip it, but surrender into and hold it with wide open arms in the face of any adversity. Now, it doesn't mean, unfortunately, that adversity ends. Kind of wish it did, right? It doesn't. But it does mean that we see with new eyes. Jesus talked about those who have eyes who can see and ears who can hear. The lenses of separation dissolve. And what remains is, like my husband likes to talk about his cataract surgery. He had pretty bad cataracts for a long time and didn't really know it. And so when he had his cataract surgery, he said, like all day long, every single day for months, it's like going from black and white TV to HD color vision. Everything was brighter, everything was illuminated, but also exhilarated. In this new humanity, it's exhilarated, it's expansive, it's spacious. It is the very presence and being of those things that include love and kindness and compassion and innovation and creativity and beauty and collaboration and a whole new way of being on the planet. So how do we do it, right? How do you live? I was talking to my colleague, my girlfriend colleague a little bit ago, and we were talking about how do you live in both worlds, and she is immediately affected by some of the fires in California, and she is directly affected. Now, it's not her home that's in the line of the actual fires, but she's immediately and directly affected. And so we were in this great conversation about how do you live in both worlds, right? Well, Jesus said, be of the world, be in the world, but not of it. And so the practice then is to know one of our other basic unity principles, which is there is the relative and there is the absolute. So relative with a small r is where we see what we see. We see what is. We see the reality of what is. But we also can know, if we bring our spiritual principles to it, that what we see is not necessarily the capital T truth, which we call the absolute. So you look at the reality, you don't deny it, you look at what is, but when you look at it from the place of the absolute, you can look at it with acceptance. And this is a really key how. When you open to face something with acceptance, then you have much easier access to a greater truth. Versus juxtaposed with, this thing is over here, I'm not going to look, I don't want to know, I don't like it, I don't want it, and feel that resistance. When we are in resistance to anything, we stop the life force, life source flow through our systems. So how do you be in both worlds? You look, you see, you open with acceptance. You don't have to like it, but what we're looking for is to drop the resistance to it. And then you acknowledge that this is what it is. It's scary. I'm feeling terrified. I have rage. I have anger. I have grief. I have sadness. I have guilt. Whatever it is, you acknowledge it. But when you turn and face it straight on and acknowledge it, whether it's the emotions I just mentioned, or a fire, or somebody in your family sick, or a storm, or losing your job, or whatever it is, if you turn and face it and go, wow, that just is. There's an acceptance there that then allows you to reframe it. So that's very different than pushing it away, making it go away, forcing it, ignoring it. It's not that. So you look and then you pivot and you go, what else is true? What else is true? This is the relative, what's true in the absolute. And the absolute is, I am a perfect child of God, perfect, whole, and complete, just as I am. It's in the absolute that we have access to that higher vibration, to that new frequency of new humanity now. But it's not, it can't remain separate. So how do you close that gap? So you look, you see, you tell the truth. You pivot to the absolute. I'm going to give you an experience of it here in a moment. And then you let your absolute, the new humanity, the truth that you are one, that we are one, that we are whole and wholeness, that we are allness. We land there in that vibration, and what it brings is it washes through our systems, body, mind, heart, soul, spirit systems, with this peace, with this calm. The peace and the calm then works on your biochemical cocktails, transcending from the stress to the ease, right? Bringing your system into coherence. It's only after we land in that place of coherence that then we can expand it out. So when my friend is in high stress, I say, let me hold it for you, right? And that's what we do as new humanity. We don't deny, but we find that place of beauty, of peace, of ease, of grace, of joy even. And we cannot be guilty for being in peace when others are stressed. That's another sort of metaphysical, that's a whole nother talk there, right? So if we're guilty, we turn, we look at the guilty, and say, wow, I'm really feeling guilty. Okay, pivot, find the truth. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. There it is. And then we take that and we expand it out so that it can encompass whatever the situation is. We're expanding peace, love, light, joy. This is in the new humanity. And we're expanding it to hold the fires, the virus, the economics, the systems. And we expand it and we hold it in love. And we know that there is a new humanity coming. And that we are that new humanity. And when we do that, everything begins to change. When we do that, we are putting the spiritual principles that we know and love, we're putting them into practice in an entirely new way. We're quantifying our principles. We're moving from the relative to the absolute, where we know, just as Jesus did, that all is well. That humanity itself will make this quantum leap into the new of oneness. And we're the ones, right here and right now, you're the ones because you're listening to me, we're the ones to find that space, to hold that space, to expand that space, to hold and embrace and encompass all people. Every single time you do that, you are impacting the global field. Every time we do that individually, and then we link up collaboratively with the others doing it, we are building new pathways. We are experiencing a new dimension of consciousness. And we are finding ourselves in the kingdom of heaven, in the kingdom on earth, right here, right now, in our very beings. And when we do that, we are the love and the light and the joy that this world needs. And that is the very basis of new humanity now. Join me, if you will, in the new. God bless you. Thank you.